It's her second time, her second run for Congress. Assemblywoman, good morning. Thanks for coming on. And I'm sure you just heard Stephen Wells. And
actually, I didn't.
Okay, we got into the some of the commercials that are out there and the printed pieces that are going around. The $1.9 billion tax increase that they say you voted for, and he said it's fact. You voted for it. How do you respond to that and some of those other pieces that are out there?
Yeah, okay, talking about, first of all, the piece quotes a Senate bill, and I'm not in the Senate yet. I never will be. But what they're talking about is we came back for a special session back in 2011. We were brought to the House by the governor, and we were to vote on the largest middle-class tax cut in 58 years. We came back, and coupled with that was the remainder was a millionaire's tax, which the big fight was to raise it. What we did is we left it the same. We didn't raise it, so we didn't raise taxes. What we did do, though, which was good, is that in New York, of course, like nowhere else in the world, a millionaire was considered someone who made $250,000 or more a year. But what we did is made someone who was a true millionaire. If you were really making $1 million or more, you would pay the very same millionaire's tax that you were already paying. So there was no tax increase. It's a false flag campaign, and I can't believe Steve Wells lacks the integrity to continue to parrot this and this, Ray Halberter's, attacks on me that are not false. This is the same campaign that was run in 2014. It's the same stuff that's being run by. It looks like they're in coordination, Steve Wells and George Phillips, because they're both willing to parrot this. And both of their supporters are appearing on the materials that Halberter's sending out in the mail and the TV ads that he's running. So I don't understand why they would parrot that and why they aren't focusing on the real issues about why he's running for Congress, what I stand for, me standing up for corruption, why Steve Wells is the largest donor to Andrew Cuomo in 2010 after the SAFE Act was passed, after the corrupt Oneida deal was shoved through, after all the chamber members, Skelos and Silver, were convicted and indicted. Why would you give $10,000 to Andrew Cuomo while you're sitting in office with millions in state contracts? I just really want to know that question. It defies any logic. I presume it's pay to play. It looks like it. He has to argue that, and he has to explain why not.
All right,
I know our business. We don't have any state contracts, and we would never give money to Andrew Cuomo. That's for sure.
All right, they're really hammering you on your voting record, and I really wanted to pin this down as well, so people can
Which we've talked about at least 3 times on
we
your
have.
show. But
We have, but we've never really pinned it down. So they're
actually,
saying
we have 3 times.
Well, we haven't.
I'm happy to talk about it maybe a couple more times, but this is what they want me to do. They don't want me to talk about my courageous voting record, my stance against corruption, the many bills that I have had made into law, unlike what some of my, what's soon going to be our predecessor says. I have many bills that are made into law that are co-sponsored in addition to those, over 60 that are in the Assembly as a minority member. That shows how hard I'm willing to work with my Democratic colleagues who are good people and good friends. Not all of them. There's some bad ones. But when they talk about a voting record, people need to understand how the Assembly operates. Over 12,000 bills are entered in a term. In the end, about a couple of hundred at the most become law, and most of those are local bills. They're local bills. They're bills like, naming a memorial highway or allowing a local village or school board to use a lever voting machine. That's what most of the bills are that we vote on in the state assembly. And you keep saying, you missed votes. Out of all those votes, I've missed 4%. I think it's less. It's like 3.4% of my time in live session at the assembly. Every single one of those votes I made up with a paper ballot. As many members, all of us are allowed to do that. I probably have missed less days in the assembly in live session than most of the members in our entire region. Most of them have missed many more days. They just don't ever face a person running a smear campaign against them. And quite honestly, I miss them, as I said before, for very good reasons. In June 17th, 18th, and 19th, you will look. Steve Wells will contend I was campaigning. The truth is, my mother was collapsing all 3 of those days from her heart issue. She had a problem with her Coumadin levels, and I literally was driving back and forth to Albany to help her because I was the only person taking care of her. She lived across the street from me. She eventually died. She collapsed of heart failure. I was in Albany. I drove home to care for her, back and forth. The next day, after her death, I drove back to the assembly. I'm one of the most diligent members in the assembly. I work very hard. I have the largest district ever created in the history of New York. I work almost every single day of the year, very hard for my constituents.
Yeah.
I fight the battle as much as I can as a minority member in the most dysfunctional legislature in the nation. And if anyone wants to know how dysfunctional I are, come down in the next 2 weeks. I invite everyone to come and watch how your tax money is being wasted in our state assembly.
I just wanted to pin down the dates, and I know you said June 17th through 19th. When, and I hate to ask this question, but it's been you're using this in defense of your record, and that is what year?
People leave the assembly to go home. Anthony Brindisi, a couple of weeks ago,
can I
missed an entire day to come home and meet with somebody here he didn't even show up for work. You could say that he should give his money back. People have things to do in their district. I have never left for any reason other than to care for my mother and to attend my son's graduation from the U.S. Naval Academy. I never missed a single vote, a single resolution, or a minute of session.
Can I just clear this
2011, 2012, the only days I missed in 2013 were for my son's graduation. By the way, we sit in session sometimes for 24 hours, 15 hours, just doing one House bills. Something like 70% of the bills we do are one House bills that have been voted on for decades.
Can you
Dave Townsend, Rowan DeStito, they voted on all these bills for years and years before I even got there. The same one House turkeys that they're meaningless, which is why I have proposed cutting session in half and cutting legislators' pay in half. Once we pass the budget on April 1st, there is no need for us to go back in and waste the taxpayers' money to go in and vote on these silly one-House bills. I mean, quite honestly, Bill, last week we voted on a one-House bill, to do a study to determine what the sobriety is in our communities. That's a waste of taxpayer money.
Okay, but I want to ask, again, I'm trying to pin down the dates. Your son graduated in 2013. What year?
I wish when he was there.
Yep.
I can't. But by the way, Bill, I made up all my votes like every other member.
I understand
like
that,
Anthony Brindisi does, like everybody else.
But
we are allowed to vote with a paper ballot. All those votes have been recorded.
What they're referencing is the Post Standard story that said in 2014 you were the third highest missed votes of all members of the assembly. That's where they're referencing from 2014.
Right, because Bill, in 2014, it was 2014.
And I'm asking what year your mother passed away.
I'm telling you what it is. They're not telling you the truth. It's a distortion. In 2014, we did about 1,100 or 1,200 bills. We did 500 in the last 3 days of session. Unfortunately for me, Bill, I'm the primary care provider for my mother in 2014. I was also running for Congress. Interestingly, I did not miss any time for running for Congress during that week. Yeah. What I was doing was driving back and forth to take care of my mother, and we voted on 500 bills in 4 days in the state assembly. And I drove back and forth to Albany at my own expense to make sure I could get in as many votes as I possibly could while my mother was in the emergency room, while my mother was suffering from a serious atrial fibrillation where she was collapsing. She could not stand up, and I'm the only person that can care for her.
And
there's nobody else.
Right.
I'm the only one that lives at home.
And that was
and I went back, and we stayed through the night from June 18th. I remember the day as well. That's a memorable day for me. We stayed through the night. We came back. We finished at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I voted. I was there, if you noticed. I was there. I went back on the 18th. I voted in all my committee meetings. I voted on as many bills as I could before I had to leave and go back to her. And then that's what it was. It's June 17th, 18th, and 19th. I have the records. You can see how many bills we passed.
Of what
all those
year?
Days.
Of that? Is that 2014?
Yes.
Okay. And then your mother passed in 2015.
In 2015, I left the assembly to go. They called me. I had to go home, and she had died, and they had her on life support. I went home to pull the plug.
Listen,
what parent or what child who's the primary? I'm the only one here. Who wouldn't do that for their child? People leave the assembly for live session to go do other things. You remember, Bill, the assembly is 107 to 43. There's 43 Republicans.
You understand that I'm simply you're being pelted with commercials.
I understand, and it's a total lie because it's a smear campaign, and they want me to sit around and talk about it. Everyone knows this is ridiculous. I mean, people in the assembly, I have one of the best voting records in the assembly. When they say I've missed the most votes, I missed, 2.5 days? 2.5 days, all in the last week of session for a family emergency. It wasn't because I was wandering around in New York City, as they claim, giving money to New York City people. I mean, that's ridiculous. Why did the Conservative Party of New York unanimously endorse me in every campaign I've ever run before anyone? They're not voting. They're not judging me on voting on a one-house bill to provide sobriety in our communities. They're judging me on the substantive bills that we vote on in the state assembly, and sadly, they're very few. And by the time April 1st ends, we should be gone like we used to be. We're wasting taxpayers' time and money. And if you look at, I put a clip on, one of my colleagues, Steve Katz, great clip, the time we waste driving people from all over the state to come in and vote on silly bills, one-house turkeys that don't have Senate sponsors. And that's what it is. And I know you know this. I just think that the public is just crying for, to stop this nonsense. Let's talk about the real issues.
I can't. The public doesn't know unless they get the facts, and that's what I'm simply trying to do here today.
I understand that. Honestly, Bill, this is the third time I've talked about this on your show.
It is, but we've never
given on it about every other show.
We've never gone through specific dates.
You can go to ClaudiaForCongress.com.
Here's
something. We have a complete discussion of exactly everything that's on there, why it's a false flag campaign. I hate to think what would happen if I were to put up the records of every other member of the Assembly and the Senate and how many days they've missed, and also how many times they voted with Sheldon Silver. There is no one in our region who has voted less with Sheldon Silver than I am. And when they say that, that's really a false claim. That's just voting yes. So if a Memorial Highway bill comes out, for example, one of my first bills was to name a Memorial Highway after Kurt Wyman, who tragically was killed. If Sheldon Silver votes yes on a Memorial Highway and I vote yes, does that mean I'm rubber stamping the New York City Democrats? That's what they're trying to show, which is a false flag campaign, and it is totally unethical for someone like Steve Wells or George Phillips to parrot this false flag campaign. They should talk about our records, what we stand for on the substantive issues. This is all just pushing around some procedural votes in a smear campaign, and that's all it is. It's a disservice to the public.
I want one last thing, and then we'll let you go, and that is George Phillips has been endorsed by the American Conservative Union, and your response to that in the Post-Standard was quite harsh. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, the state Conservative Party has unanimously endorsed me. They are the line C. They're the third largest vote-getting line in the state of New York. It's a ballot. Why didn't George seek that? I mean, who cares what a social club that's filled with all kinds of Bush establishment people who support cronyism, people who support trade and taking our jobs overseas. Why would you want a social group like that to endorse you over the state Conservative Party? And one has to wonder why his D.C. friends, his friends in Washington, he's got a few friends. Remember, George Phillips has run for Congress twice and lost. With these establishment Republicans behind him, he was their candidate. You have to wonder why ACU would step on the toes of the state Conservative Party with their candidate, someone like me who's won the Conservative of the Year award and consistently ranks as one of their top conservatives, and I'm carrying their ballot. I'm going to be on their line in the general election. I will be on the line in November. Why would ACU step on them? That smacks of politics and insiders getting hysterical and worried that, my goodness, a true conservative and somebody who has always been elected by the people actually might have a chance to get into Congress. And I think that's what they're afraid of.
You called them a disgrace. You stand by that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're looking forward to Monday. It starts at 7 a.m. I think it's going to be extremely informative, and we can't wait. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney. Quick break. I do have birthdays. Can I squeeze them in? Because I know we went long. Barbara Lindsay in Clinton, happy birthday. Loretta Boyer in Clinton, happy birthday. Lisa Smigel in Utica, happy birthday. Notice the emphasis different when you move to Utica. Lisa Smigel, happy birthday. And then Brady Reese is celebrating her 7th birthday. Happy birthday to you. Because in the Valley they sing. They don't do that apparently up here. I don't know why. Brady Reese, happy birthday. The cake goes to Barbara Lindsay in Clinton. Barbara, congratulations and happy birthday. You get a cake from the legendary Florentine Pastry Shop. Get a birthday on air by going to our news site at WIBX950.com or send it in on the postcard. 9418 River Road, Marcy 13403. Coming right back. The topic next, and this is a lot of stuff, one right after another this hour. Utica Comptroller Bill Morehouse taking issue with a story that was in the OD just 2 days ago about the numbers surrounding the sale of Hotel Utica. He's going to challenge those numbers when we come right back here. We need 3 minutes, though. Coming right back at WIBX.